So thank you very much for the introduction and the invitation to participate in this conference. So many interesting concepts and ideas have been revealed so far. So before I start, I want to say that I have a bit more philosophical approach on the topic that we have in focus for today. And first, I want to challenge you to make an introspection of yourself as fashionable personas today. Just think about it. Who is the fashionable you? So let me spark some imagination with a few slides. That's the first one, and I have another one for you. So let's try to solve the puzzle together of what a fashionable persona is. In my today's presentation, which, as you already said, I titled Pandora's Box of Uncertainty, Mirror, Mirror on the Wall, which mask is the best one of them all. So apart from anyone's take on fashion, one thing is inevitable, and that is that fashion creates a new world closer to fantasy due to the inability to build a comfort zone with reality. Quite settling to know that fashion is in a way here to lift us up in this unsettling scenario we all live in currently. And about my take on the fashionable persona, without a doubt, the first thing that comes to my mind are the dandies. In this slide, you can see recent appropriations and representation of the dandy symbols in fashion shows. With their front fashion statements, they are the embodiments of stylistic changes in the fashion front. But as I already said, we all have our own take on what a fashionable persona is, whether confined or liberated. So now that we have set the base and you have a clear vision in the understanding of my visual and aesthetic codes, I invite you to join me in the rest of my presentation. And here, first, I want to talk, as I already said, about the fashionable persona in confinement. Recently, we've all been triggered to unravel this quintessential puzzle of well-being while upholding our fashionable identity in a dystopian environment, meaning being quarantined. I believe that this is the right term that actually depicts the society today. To me, it feels like a reminiscent experience of a cyberpunk setting, an escape into new corporeality with redefined aesthetics amidst an urgent need to transform the overall fashion system and the system in general. The much relevant question that arises is how to redefine the sign, the signifier and significance of fashion and identity in this afresh reality. We are faced with a situation that might give the answers about the future of fashion. So much data has been recently shared through the online channels of the fashion industry, media, brands, designers. So many interesting conversations have been organized online lately. And we've heard so many mind-provoking ideas and changes that will challenge our perception of the fashion system as we know it, but also as we want it to be. I've heard so many discussion on the topic of the death of fast fashion or integration of a new conscious shopping, emphasizing sustainable fashion, buying less, how quality should be in the first place, less is more. So there are many terms around us and it's really hard to kind of grasp what's going to be next, what will follow after this. Is it just like a short span interest of the gatekeepers of the fashion industry, but also in all the actors in this fashion concept, or is it something that is going to perceive and something that's going to stay for a long time? Roland Barthes expressed that renewal in fashion is linked essentially to the apparent novelty of combination, and in this case it will be meanings and not so much the novelty of feature actually. I want to add that fashion always changes in cycles. It should never be considered a static thing. It evolves, it changes and manifests as a recycled ideal. But we need to expect wide changes under the curtain of the unprecedented times we witness, and we will probably see them hopefully in near future. For the time being, let's stay focused on the fashionable persona in confinement, though it is hard to detach the dystopian aspect of it, which has an eclectic background scope in cyberpunk, as I already mentioned. So fashionable persona in confinement opens questions on uniforms and waist-up clothing and the mirror shade effect in a society in a way. We have the possibility to choose both our costume and our personality in a confined, but at the same time freed environment. It is contradictory, I know, and we already talked about this, but just think about it. Limitations in the way we should present ourselves are often posed by the outside world. And in this case, it is only us and a computer in a restricted space. And as you can see in this image for Ava Gardner, It's her, her amazing dress, and just a newspaper. So just think of the possibilities coming from this. Do we stay honest to the style we used to have, or do we evolve in an unknown direction? Or is it just a question of perception? So let's go backwards and think about the accelerative dystopian context in cyberpunk, and maybe here we can find some answers. Cyberpunk appeared as a cultural movement in times where there was a need to transform the system due to this global malaise. It's kind of a familiar scenario nowadays. So maybe the cyberpunk movement can assist us in foreseeing the changes in the fashion system. But was it the same setup? How do we detect the similarities and reverses in this afresh scenario? Being virtually present at the conference today gives new meanings in understanding of quarantine bodies and identities. This interaction of the body with the clothes and the surrounding is essential in understanding this experience. It is not as much a new corporality as it is about the setting in which the body is being placed. The digital presence gives the whole experience an immersive zest, and redefining the identity is relevant if you want to stay alert of what's gonna be next. So these tectonic changes will most probably happen not only in fashion per se, but also in the way we conceptualize our identity, since not only the setting is changing, it is also, as it was already mentioned, the communication in a situation of omnipresent fear that has massive impact on us, detached, attached quarantine identities and bodies and clothes. The Fashion Technology Union seems more relevant than ever today.
Offline Kristina, I'm sorry, we don't see any presentation.
Yeah, it will follow.
Oh
yes,
okay.
No problem. So this offline and online experience set the tone on how to be distinctive and how to represent our fashionable persona amidst a tornado of new information and emotion. And in the second section of my talk, I want to express some thoughts on the phenomenon of the new normal that toys with our identities and our mind in a quarantine scenario. This unfamiliar condition of being quarantined proposes a new normal, which is also highlighted in this conference, and it presupposes ambiguous meanings since it is not just the opposite of normal or its continuum. And essentially, as we all know, normal cannot be defined, and consequently a new normal neither. Today, as I would imply further on, we live in a strange setting that denotes a subjective uncharted territory, so it is hard to grasp the reframed connotation of something that has not been defined. And what is new normal anyway? Is it just a redefinition of something that is familiar to us in a strange context? It is not anything new. It's like fashion, changing in cycles and depicting an altered mode. So let me show you what I mean here visually. In these representations, you can actually see that this new normal also already happened almost a century ago. So on the left side, you can see that these women made their self-made protective face shields almost a century ago during the Spanish flu crisis. And on the right side, you have a more modernized interpretation of the face shield during this crisis that we live in today. And I think a lot of things and a lot of designs will evolve in this manner as seen in the image on the right side. So, and well, while we are in this reality, I will continue with my last section on being imprisoned both inwards and outwards. Here, I want to refer to the current turbulent feeling of being in a quarantine, but also I want to explore the sense of being imprisoned both inwards and outwards. And in those lines, this fleeting experience of the in-between space of the garment and the body becomes even more intense. In a way, it is a unique encounter in a world of omnipresent fear, where each identity can be reimagined in an ambience where no one is omniscient of what will follow next. This in-between space represents the notion of our identities while our bodies are confined in the clothes. But the story goes much deeper if we add the emotional turmoil of being quarantined with oneself in a confined setting. This restricted milieu sets the tone for escaping into second reality, meaning being virtually available almost all of the time. Our virtual doppelgangers or avatars entail a complex interaction between our physical presence and virtual representation, and just add the fashion aspect in the whole story. Regardless, still the most important is the narration of a personal identity in the light of this disguised vagueness. And here, almost close to the end of my talk, I want to stress out the feeling of wearing a face mask. It is an emotional spectacle that is so hard to depict. The hidden identity, interrupted interaction, is it freedom or being imprisoned? The mask faces offer so many layers of meanings, and the mask is a veil for the truth of one's face expression while upholding the mystery of actually having one. And just that the face is the prime medium with which we present ourselves in a society which is already defined by the feeling of alienation and estrangement. So let's wait and see what the mask future will bring, or in Claude Cahun's words, under this mask, another mask, and another mask, and another mask. So here I want to end my presentation for today, and thank you very much for listening.
Kristina, thank you so much for your presentation. Now we are ready for questions and comments. We have a few in our Zoom box. Interesting how, from Lainey Burton, interesting how the Spanish flu self-made protective face masks mirrors the bird-shaped beak of the 16th plague mask.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, and from Mary Bacall, amazingly interesting, nice philosophical approach, provoked lots of thoughts about the new normal and the fashionable I or me during these times. Do we have physical comments or questions, like live? Yeah.
Yeah, it's so fun when it's live.
Yeah. So let's see if there are any hands raised or anything. Masks.
Yeah, we talked so much about masks today,
Yeah.
but we'll have a take on them.
Exactly. Yes, it seems like next time we put one, we will do it more consciously even than we used to do before.
It can be an option, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So it seems like that's it with questions and remarks. But hopefully, or probably, yes, there will be some other in our chat box, and we all have each other's emails, which it makes it possible to communicate afterwards.